This is Wrap the News, and what is happening is they are all fighting for strategic position because they are intent on going to war. Joel 3 tells the Gentiles to prepare for war. They have prepared, and now we are in the time of the Gentiles, meaning that the respite of the Gentiles is pretty much done. And then when it is done, they are all going to annihilate each other in the Gog and Magog war. With that said, Russia is fighting to keep United States and NATO out of Ukraine so they don't get a good position on destroying Russia. China is trying to keep America and NATO out of Taiwan so they don't get a good position on China to destroy China. And it's just like America conflict, the Cuban conflict, they was trying to keep Russia out of Cuba to stop Russia from getting a good position on America to destroy America. They are all fighting for position to totally annihilate each other. We know from scripture that the North will win, but who wins really in a nuclear war? Nobody wins in a nuclear war, so let's get into it.
That we stand off with our ships in the Black Sea and we rain destruction on Russian military capability. I would not rule out American troops on the ground. We don't. Do you know we don't rule out first use nuclear action, nuclear action, nuclear action.
Look at what Senator Wicker is saying. I want to go back to that for a second here, because anyone who would propose or even consider what he is saying as an option must be insane, a sociopath, yes, or a sadist. Because let's just understand here. So he's saying, let's go and launch a nuclear attack that would start a war that would destroy the American people, our country, and the world, and also the Ukrainians, so that we can save Ukraine's democracy.
Joe Biden should consider a nuclear strike, according to a GOP senator, over Russia and Ukraine. Of course, this would start a thermonuclear war with some of the largest countries in the world today.
The call covered a range of issues, but the main topic was Ukraine. President Biden was direct and straightforward with President Putin, as he always is. He reiterated America's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity. He told President Putin directly that if Russia further invades Ukraine, the United States and our European allies would respond. We would provide additional defensive materiel to the Ukrainians above and beyond that which we are already providing. And we would fortify our NATO allies on the eastern flank with additional capabilities in response to such an escalation.
But in 2015, Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping started to make some actual plans.
Tensions between the USA and Russia continue to increase day by day. The show of power between the two superpowers, which came face to face in many different parts of the world, has now increased the size of the Cold War. Especially recently, bilateral disputes in Syria and the South China Sea have shown that the conflict is very close. The US has been putting pressure on China in the South China Sea for a long time. As a result of this pressure, China became uncomfortable, especially in the South China Sea and Taiwan. China has begun to take war measures in the region and is considering moves against the United States. At the same time, the biggest problem of China, which increased its military power in the region, was that it was left without allies in the Pacific. The latest example of the Cold War rehearsals between the USA, Russia and China was announced by news sources close to the Russian Ministry of Defense. Sources close to Russia claimed that a fleet of Russian bombers and warplanes had infiltrated U.S. airspace undetected by U.S. radars and conducted test operations for hours. The report also states that this operation carried out an electronic attack on the United States.
Tensions high tonight on the Ukraine-Russia border, as new intelligence suggests the Kremlin is in advanced stages of planning an invasion of Ukraine as early as next year.
I'm not quite sure what they're going to do, but to me, that is a terrible going to have a terrible impact on the stability and security of our European friends.
The Washington Post obtaining photos showing a Russian troop buildup of more than 175,000. Both the Pentagon and White House monitoring the situation closely.
We're going to continue to do everything we can to help provide Ukraine the capability to protect the sovereign territory.
We often talk about saber rattling. I would say in this case, the saber has been drawn out of the sheath, and Vladimir Putin is aggressively waving it in the face of the Ukrainians. Ukraine must stay steady, rely on the United States in this crisis.
The provocations come as Russia has demanded the U.S. guarantee that Ukraine won't join the NATO military alliance. But President Biden has been clear he rejects any such conditions.
Don't accept anybody's red line.
A top American official has stated that the U.S. Army is preparing for any potential conflict with China by focusing on bases, logistics, and long-range missiles. This is probably one of the most straightforward and clear statements delivered from the American side and came from U.S. Army Secretary Christine Wormuth. Viewers may note that Wormuth was appointed Secretary of the Army on May 28, 2021, becoming the first woman to hold the Army's top civilian post. During the discussion in a virtual event hosted by the Washington, D.C.-based think tank Center for International Strategic Studies, CSIS, she identified 5 core tasks for the U.S. Army Indo-Pacific conflict that are designed to counter China. In this video, Defense Updates analyzes how the U.S. Army Secretary has delivered a blunt message to China. According to an October 14th Lockheed Martin statement, the U.S. Army's Precision Strike Missile, or PRSM, broke its distance record in a flight test at Vandenberg Space Force Base, California, October 13th. The company did not disclose the distance the PRSM traveled in its flight test, but the goal of the test was to see exactly how far the missile can travel beyond its previous set requirement of 499 kilometers or 310 miles. PRSM was initially meant only for surface-to-surface warfare and was being designed to take on targets such as air defenses and troop fortifications, but is now being configured with an advanced targeting multi-mode seeker that will enable it to engage moving targets, including rivals, surface combatants, and seas. Progress is being made in the domain of hypersonic missiles, too. There are also experiments going on with land-launched Tomahawk for land attack and anti-ship missions. The U.S. has bases like Okinawa and Guam, which can be launching areas for these weapons and make things extremely difficult for the Chinese military when it comes to invading Taiwan, wresting control of Japanese-claimed islands, or dominating the South China Sea.
Focusing in on what might lie ahead. These Ukrainian soldiers are patiently preparing for the worst, here along what many international experts say could become the front lines of a full-scale battle between Russia and the Ukraine. If Russian troops attack us, we are ready to fight back. All of us are ready. In fact, we've been waiting for this for a long time.